The next scene shifts to a hospital room where one of Cha's lackeys suddenly jolts awake. As he looks around, he spots Cha on the other side of the room, all patched up, but clearly still in rough shape. The lackey is stunned to see his boss there, and Cha quickly tells him to stop calling him boss while they're in the hospital. Confused, the junior asks how his boss ended up here. Cha casually mentions he got roughed up and just took a cab to get treated. The lackey then inquires about Go-seong and the rest of the lackeys. Cha, with a nonchalant shrug, says he took care of them all. The junior simply can't believe it and calls this BS, prompting the senior to get a bit annoyed and asks why his junior thinks he'd lie. The lackey suggests it's probably because he is too embarrassed to admit he got beaten by Go-seong. Cha then asks if he happened to have met Jin yesterday. The junior perks up and confirms that he did indeed meet him. He further explains that he got ambushed by the enemy team while he was heading out of the club, and after getting brutally wounded, he found our boy and yelled at him. He charged at Jin out of anger, but after receiving the first hit, he fainted and doesn't remember anything else. The boss explains that Jin probably knocked him out to get him to the hospital. Cha then continues, saying that inside the club, he was overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies. That's when Jin showed up, took them all out in seconds, and then told him he'd paid his dues before simply walking out. The lackey finds this absolutely admirable and thinks it's really badass, to say the least. The senior agrees, acknowledging that Jin is indeed quite impressive. The lackey then asks his boss if he has any clue who this kid really is. The senior points out that Jin claims to be just an average teenager, so he figures they'll have to take his word for it. In the next scene, we see a football heading straight toward Jin, and he catches it effortlessly. The referee immediately announces it as a handball, leaving everyone on the playground absolutely shocked. His friend, visibly annoyed, reminds him that he's not supposed to grab the ball because he's not a goalkeeper. Jin is confused about why he's getting an earful, apologizes anyway. Suddenly the bell rings, and Jin's friends call out to him, asking if he has time to hang out since today is the only day Yongchan doesn't have lessons after school, and they're planning to do some gaming together. Jin tells them to go ahead, and that he'll meet them at the location later, because he needs to walk his sister home first. His friends are a bit bewildered and ask if he's started to babysit his sister again. Jin explains that she's not feeling well lately. Blondie decides to save a spot for Jin, and meanwhile, Daeon is preparing to leave her class. She's thinking about making kimchi stew for Jin because he loved it the last time. However, she's unsure if he can handle spicy food, so she's considering making a milder soybean paste stew instead. Suddenly she hears a buzz of excitement from the other girls in her class. They're all gathered by the window, swooning over Jin. Some find him hot, while others are hoping he'll become their boyfriend. The girls even turn to Daeon and ask if her brother is dating anyone. Daeon is caught off guard by their dripping enthusiasm about her brother, so she hesitates, and then reluctantly says that he mentioned he's not dating anyone. As the ladies dash back over the window, Daeon smiles faintly, clearly pleased that her brother is well known among the girls. Walking outside the school, she wonders why Jin doesn't have a girlfriend, and if he might not be interested in girls at all. Suddenly she hears some voices nearby and discovers that it's Jin with his friends. Startled, she quickly tries to greet them as politely as possible. One of the more bashful lackeys blushes at her cuteness, and just waves in response to her greeting. The boys decide to head off to the game room, hoping Jin will meet them there. Once they're gone, Daeon asks if Jin is hanging out with his friends. He confirms that he is, but adds that he'll stop at home first. When she asks if it's because of her, Jin explains that he just left something at home. But she still insists that she can walk home on her own since it's still bright outside. However, Jin claims that he really needs to pick up something he left at home. She then points out that he doesn't need to go out of his way for her, just like she told Yona when she offered to have security escort her. All she wants is to lead a normal life. Jin stays quiet, but agrees to her request, saying he'll do as she says, though he suggests they still walk home together from time to time. Daeon pouts, saying he worries too much, but Jin explains he's not just worried, he actually enjoys their walks. In the end, she finally agrees to keep walking with him. As they're walking, Jin suddenly stops when he spots that same woman with black hair which we suspect to be Yona's sister. Anyway, she greets Jin, but he doesn't bother to respond to her greetings. Meanwhile, Daeon is just as clueless about the woman with the black hair. The woman then pretends to notice Daeon for the first time, puts on an exaggeratedly concerned look and says she must be the one who went through so much because of Yeona's abduction. Daeon is seriously confused by now and asks who she is. The woman introduces herself as Yeona's cousin and says she's here to thank Daeon for helping Yeona, and offers to treat her to dinner if she has some time. Jin flatly refuses, explaining that Yeona already thanked him personally, so there's no need for this stranger to go out of her way. The woman is bewildered by his bluntness but tries to continue the conversation, saying she also has a proposition that could benefit both of them. Once again, Jin firmly declines, saying he's not interested. He then just starts to walk away, leaving this arrogant woman absolutely fuming. But before he's completely out of sight, Daeon makes sure to bow her head and give her one last polite nod. Meanwhile, the lady is seething with rage, and her guard asks if he should bring him back forcefully. But the lady says no. It seems her ego's been bruised more than we thought, and she's practically boiling over with anger. Next up, we're in the gaming room where everyone's glued to their TV screens. While they're all deeply immersed in their game, Youngchan decides it's time to take a dump. As he's heading down the hall, he accidentally bumps into a cocky punk. This guy immediately starts threatening Youngchan, barking at him to watch where he's going. Youngchan, poor guy, is practically shaking and stumbles out an apology. But Mr. Cocky isn't done. He's about to slap Youngchan across the face. Just in the nick of time, Jae-hyung bursts onto the scene and saves his friend from getting slapped. Jae-hyung strides over cockily, telling the cocky punk to get over it, because there's no need to make a scene over a little shoulder bump. He quickly spits out the lollipop he was sucking and locks eyes with the punk, and tells him to not take them for a bunch of goddamn scaredy cats. The punk's nerves are clearly rattled by Jae-hyung's deadly glare,